There's a very interesting vibe in the air this week. And not just this week, it's been something that's been building up for a good couple of months now. But I've been noticing a very strong peak since our new moon in Libra that we just had here just a couple of days ago. Because I feel like there is a new depth, but also a new darkness kind of rising in the energy of the planet right now that is kind of something that's been getting nurtured all 2025, but in particular, peaking now and becoming settled, becoming an integrated norm as we go into the rest of 2025 and beyond. And if you guys haven't had a chance to see it yet and you're looking for a Halloween activity, check out my Spirit Communication Altar video. As you can see, I've been getting down with some very important talks myself. This video is probably going to have both the deeper esoteric discussion kind of vibe to it and also more grounded astrology. So I want to see what people think of this as we go a bit further. But I've been getting ready to do some other forecasts, of course, weekly tarot and astrology, and of course the monthlies for November. But every once in a while, I sit down to do some recordings and there is a discussion, a topic, or maybe even a big wave that needs to be discussed first. And so that is what we're going to be talking about today. What is going on with this rising darkness, and what do we need to understand about darkness itself? This new moon in Libra was actually quite powerful in the sense that it also loosely formed a square to Pluto in Aquarius, just as he has been getting his, I guess you could say, getting his bearing after turning direct. And of course, that does also mean some pretty consistent interactions with Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio that has been routinely activating and reactivating a square with Pluto in Aquarius throughout the course of 2025. And what does this mean? What is growing darkness? What does that mean for us? What does the new moon in Libra mean when we talk about invoking the balance? And what does Pluto have to do with it, talking about transitions and new beginnings and resets forward? And how might this give some context into some of your personal stories and personal journeys, but also maybe even some context as to what is going on with the world at large? Now, what's interesting about this is that it also gives us a unique opportunity to be able to understand that darkness in and of itself is not evil, just like light in and of itself is not good. It is all about a balance. It is all about seeing where we have been out of balance and where certain balances need to be reintegrated. Darkness often gets a bad reputation just because of a lot of rather extreme, mainstream, oversimplified religious connotations with darkness. People often associate darkness with evil, with cruelty, with hatred and malice and loss and pain and sadness. There's not really anything good or bad about light or dark. They are just forces that are a part of existence. If you exist, you have darkness. If you exist, you have light. Light itself can also be pretty evil, right? Light does focus on order. So we could even say, to a certain degree, a lot of the crazy, almost, fascist-like stuff going on in the world, whatever your political spectrum is. By the way, just so you guys know, I very seldom talk about politics on this channel because kind of like how I am both lighter and darker than most people, I am also further left and further right than most people at the same time. I am truly independent on pretty much all levels. But you can see that rising tide come up. And I always look at that and go, that is a light imbalance. Because a light imbalance is both a frenzy, but also at the same time, you tend to see this push for control, push for role absorption, push for scapegoating, push for domination, push for attachment, greed, and covetousness in imbalanced, broken light. Whereas with darkness, you can often see, again, in that breaking, more of an obsession, a decay, a consumption kind of energy. There is something going on where it feels like there is a push to bring balance back to these polarities after being in a very polar and very unstable place for so long, which I think is actually quite beautiful. But it is also creating some very interesting stirs in all of our lives and all of our stories. Darkness itself brings the opportunity for rejuvenation, for regeneration, for recharging. We need darkness. We sleep in darkness. We don't sleep with our eyes open staring at the sun. We need darkness because darkness also brings transformation. It brings endings. Without endings, there can be no new beginnings. There is a push that is happening now for us to integrate and accept transition, endings, and even our own darkness for our own good, for our own happiness, for our own balance. When we let things transform, we reset forward. This new moon in Libra did, of course, bring a very important new energy to the field, but because it also did create a square to Pluto in Aquarius, there was also this kind of call for us to see where something won't show up until we accept a new beginning, which means also accepting an ending. I've had a couple of clients this last week or so, even prior to the new moon, that had some very similar messages to each other. And of course, looking ahead at their charts and of course, predicting their future, everything was very clear. Some of these clients were constantly trying to attract and draw to themselves and pull into their bubble, into their retreat space, into their turtle shell, what will not go into that space, because it was their time to move on to something new. Sometimes we can't attract the people or the resources or the stories or the projects or the conditions that we desire or the things that we need to where we are, because we're supposed to be having those things out there. That is an example of a transition and a reset forward. A transformation brought on by darkness, making room for new light. Light and dark working in harmony. However, when you have a world that fears darkness and has kind of created a lot of liturgy and doctrine around things like contracts, be they social contracts, interpersonal contracts, constraining role absorption, parts to play, artificial structures for a sense of artificial order. Darkness itself can be scary because it brings the truth of the despair of those creations, that they aren't real and that they will go away. Sometimes our attachments, our contracts, our agreements, our obsessions are only lessons in learning that we can break them. Lessons in learning that we can let go of them. Lessons in learning that it's time to know when to call something quits on that space, that job, that connection, that investment, that project, that asset, whatever. Pay attention to where it's time to see where something will not come into your life because of where you're choosing to keep your life and where you might need to transform. There's a bit of an emo energy to this as well. Actually, I decided to kind of go back into my, into my emo nostalgia, listening to some Evanescence from 2002. And I was thinking about some of the lyrics were actually relevant of some of these songs, especially that one song, "Everybody's Fool." It was very, very much relevant to what I was observing in studying the charts, and I was thinking about how that vibe seems to be kind of carrying everywhere. There's a shake up and a wake up here for all of us, and yes, you could consider this a spiritual awakening, but a dark awakening. Right? It is the epiphany that comes in a deep sleep at 1 a.m, an awareness, something that could only be delivered in darkness. And when I say a spiritual awakening, again, I'm not talking about what people have been purporting the last 15 to 20 years, where it's just giving a bunch of NPCs self-awareness and then turning them into a geopolitical army or a bankroll, dyeing the sheep's wool a different color and then making them swear allegiance and swear fealty to new leaders and cult leaders that are just kind of, trying to get success off of their presence. I'm talking about clarity. I'm talking about the acceptance of the balance of light and dark and where we must. Now, in this case, it might also be asking you to see where you have to embrace something that you are afraid to embrace for your own balance, for a new beginning. What is it time to release? What is it time to stop being afraid of? Darkness gives us an opportunity to move past our fears. Darkness gives us an opportunity as well to uncover secrets in the shadows. People often ask, when it comes to my spirituality, what deities that I work with. How is it I kind of, who do I work with? Who are my friends? Who's my spiritual family? And I keep a balance. And I've been feeling older, darker Nico rising up in me consistently this year. It's been a very interesting, it's been an interesting year. I started off the first 6 months of this year kind of reintegrating a lot of brighter, I would say unsullied inner child spark, but at the same time, he was kind of getting beaten and bruised and kind of burned left, right, and center by a lot of different situations. And then the older, much darker Nico started coming home to me as well. And what was interesting is that at first I was kind of worried because you guys don't know Dark Nico. You really don't. But at the same time, there was an awareness of the need for him. The need for him to be there, how he developed in the first place long ago, and why he might be crucial right now. You might have versions of that or story playing out in your life. Some of you are getting a taste of this for the very first time because some of you developed into adults who learned to serve your bullies. Who learned to serve your bullies because you thought your bullies would teach you how to be cool, or teach you how to be successful, or help you to get away from your true self that you were taught to cringe and wince at. So your darkness is challenging you to grow a spine and fight your bully instead of serve your bully. Some of you are getting your darkness back because you need to allow endings to occur. Because the universe will no longer give you what you need to keep reinvesting in what shouldn't be yours anymore. Where is it we need to be ready to retire from certain paths, certain stories, in order for promising new beginnings to happen? That is the story of this year, and also 2026. The challenge comes in with this Lilith in Scorpio. Because Black Moon Lilith is an aspect of darkness, yes, but also both darkness in the healthy way and darkness in the unhealthy way. Remember, darkness unchecked, darkness unbalanced, darkness unfocused. It's kind of like the difference between batshit crazy and controlled crazy. Darkness unbalanced can become very clingy, can create a lot of narratives, a lot of shadowy narratives, to overinvest, to over-attach, and also deny what is resolution, deny what is conclusive closure. We have to look and see where we've been stubborn. We have to accept where the unhealthy aspect of Lilith must be checked, and also see where the healthy aspect of Lilith is trying to come forward. The one who will initiate the endings, the one who will walk away, the one who will refuse to be fake, the one who will refuse to bend the knee, the one who will refuse to be an NPC, the one who will refuse to fake it until they make it. This is a very important wave that a lot of people might actually be afraid to talk about in the astrology community. But if you recognize any of the patterns that we're talking about here, this may have been going on for some time throughout 2025 for you. And now it's going to basically insist upon itself until you do something about it. So that is what I've got for you all. Just a little bit more of a deep dive for a very powerful dark wave going on. Remember, darkness isn't always evil. And remember, light isn't always good. In fact, quite contemporarily, I would say, a lot of people that come at me with love and light are sometimes the most toxic, chaotic, and destructive people I've ever met. So try to take everything with a grain of salt. It's not the dark or the light that are good or bad within themselves. It's just whether or not something's being done or embodied in a healthy way or out of control. So you'll take care. I hope you found this helpful. I'll format this and get this all up for you. And I will see you all again soon with more spiritual talk videos as well as more astrology. Take care.